Hi everyone, today I am talking through 6 drinks to help period cramps. So as a nutritionist, this is a common question, but also just the general topic of what foods and drinks can I eat or not eat to help manage different symptoms. So as I say, I'm starting talking about the period cramps today, and this is generally something that has troubled me in the past. So myself as an individual and as a nutritionist, I have worked to try different techniques, different dietary options in order to help manage this symptom. So that's why I wanted to talk about this today. So I have to say that although I'm talking through some options, of course it is individual to a certain extent. And not everything will work in the same way for everyone, so it's in no way a conclusive list, but hopefully some of the options on there will be helpful to some of you. So the first one that I have to mention is water, and water is just so important for so many things, but particularly for the period type symptoms as well, and that's for a number of reasons. So if we are able to stay properly hydrated by drinking sufficient water, then that helps to support our circulation, and our blood is really important for taking nutrients to any affected area, but particularly the womb, and also then taking any waste products away. So in the case of period cramps, we are talking about prostaglandins, which are pro-inflammatory chemical mediators which are released from your womb, and they can cause lots of the discomfort. So if we stay properly hydrated, drink enough water, then that helps to keep the blood flowing through the womb and helps to carry away some of these pro-inflammatory prostaglandins. The other little practical point with the water is it helps to keep your bowel moving regularly as well. So if you're quite constipated or quite bunged up, your bowel sits nicely round your womb, so if that area is generally quite congested, then it could potentially add to some of the discomfort. So it's really important to try and drink water in order to keep your digestive tract moving properly. In terms of water itself, I would say to try and prioritise your plain still water. Although we're going to talk through some other suitable drink options, I really want the water to be the key basic. So I really would love everyone to try and drink at least 1.5 to 2 litres of water a day, and hopefully that can help make a difference to you. For people who don't really like the taste or really struggle with the plain water, my advice is to add some herbs or fruit slices just to make it a little bit more palatable. But for me, the water is a must, and then over and above that, if you want any warm drinks, as we'll go on to discuss some options, then that's fine. Next I want to talk through some caffeine alternatives. So I will mention as we go through how caffeine potentially could be causing more issues and adding to the problem. So some caffeine alternatives would be good. If you're a coffee lover, then my advice is to go for Bambu. It's made from chicory and grains such as barley, and it's really the taste is really common, really similar to caffeine and coffee. So it's a lovely substitute. It's one that I particularly like myself, especially if you like that coffee taste. And just watch out for decaf options of any of your teas or coffees, because often the chemicals are used to extract the caffeine, and those themselves can be quite pro-inflammatory. So although you're losing the caffeine, which is pro-inflammatory, you may be adding some pro-inflammatory chemicals in there instead. The other thing with caffeine, interestingly, is it really stimulates your kind of stress response in the body. And what this does, your fight or flight response, when that's fired up, it helps to stimulate your heart and your lungs and your skeletal muscles, but actually it can risk diverting blood away from some of the other areas such as your reproductive system, so that perhaps doesn't get so much attention if you're in that kind of stress state as a result of drinking too much caffeine. So it's partly helpful if we can help to reduce that stress and anxiety state, and caffeine is definitely stimulating of that. So that's just one little thing we can help do, as well as obviously, as I mentioned, improve your circulation to really get the blood flowing in those kind of key areas. Next I wanted to talk about smoothies, because most of us understand that smoothies are quite healthy, but why are they so healthy and how could they potentially help during this time? So this is really down to the kind of nutrients that your smoothies can contain, especially if we're able to make them ourselves and really pack in lots of those anti-inflammatory nutrients. So first of all, we have magnesium, and this is one of my all-time favourite nutrients, as I'm sure you'll learn from watching my videos. But magnesium is particularly relaxing. That's both in terms of our mood and also our muscles. So in and around the uterus, all those muscles that are contracting during this time, the magnesium can help to just relax this slightly, which could help to relieve some of that discomfort we experience. Also, especially if you're able to pack in lots of vegetables to your smoothies, iron is particularly important, especially if you're prone to quite heavy bleeding. That iron can help to just replenish some of those stores, which is really, really important. The other nutrient that I particularly recommend trying to pack into your smoothies is some omega-3. And this is so amazingly anti-inflammatory, and there is research on this nutrient in particular to help with periods cramps. So you can find omega-3 in lots of nuts and seeds in particular. So your flax seeds, which you can also get in oil form, are a particularly good one to try and work in, as are walnuts. And obviously there's lovely protein in there as well, so it can add a bit more depth to your smoothies and make them that little bit more filling, but crucially you get that omega-3 in there. Next, I'm just going to run through some teas, which can be really nice options. So these are much lower in caffeine, they're near enough caffeine free, and as I was saying earlier, as much as we want water to be the basis, many of us like a tea. They're really comforting, and if you can opt for these types of herbal teas in particular, they could potentially bring some more benefits and help relieve some of those uncomfortable symptoms. So first of all, we have ginger tea, and ginger is lovely and anti-inflammatory. So there is some research to suggest that it could help to relieve some menstrual pain as a result of the cramps. And there's a research study in particular that can pop in the description that says it might even be as effective as ibuprofen, one of the major anti-inflammatory medication groups. So it's definitely one to try. Ginger is also super calming for the digestive system. So if you experience any nausea or those kind of symptoms around the time of your period as well, then it can potentially help in both those respects. Next up is chamomile tea. Chamomile is well known for being quite calming, and crucially it's calming both mentally but also physically, again to help relieve some of those muscle spasms and muscle cramps in and around the womb. And again, anti-inflammatory properties as well. Chamomile is a herb and it has some lovely anti-inflammatory properties to help just quell some of those pro-inflammatory prostaglandins. Finally on my list, I have peppermint tea as well. Once again, super anti-inflammatory. It's antispasmodic, which again is great for your womb, but also for digestion. If you experience some of those digestive symptoms such as diarrhea, it can potentially help to relax some of those spasms in the muscles in and around the gut as well. So I hope that helps. I'm just quickly going to touch on the other side of the story, so some drinks potentially to avoid, but I'm not going to spend quite so much time on those, and as I say again, it is completely individual. So yes, I mentioned some problem elements such as your caffeine. So the other one would be to be aware of is sugar. Sugar is pro-inflammatory, and unfortunately it's added to lots and lots of fizzy drinks and sugar sweetened drinks as well. So sugar is pro-inflammatory, so it could just heighten some of those symptoms that are exacerbated as a result of the prostaglandins. The other one would be to watch just fizzy drinks as well, because you've got the added carbonated gas, which could add to the problem of bloating and discomfort. So in some cases it can be a double whammy. I've talked a bit about caffeine and how it stimulates your kind of stress response. So that's definitely one to avoid. And just to note that Caffeine even earlier in the day, as early afternoon, can actually still affect you and still stay in your system for the rest of the day. I think it's up to 8 or 9 hours, which is just crazy for a number of reasons if you think about sleep and other issues that caffeine could potentially be impacting. But it is one to consider for menstrual cramps as well. It might be one to avoid, for the full day if you're really struggling. Just another couple to add to the list, and again, this is not conclusive. In some cases, it's individual, but one to mention would be dairy. Just a few points on dairy. It is a little bit more taxing on your digestive system. It's quite high in fat, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but just if you're a little bit more sensitive, especially around this time of the month, potentially it could just be adding to a little bit of the discomfort. So it's perhaps one just to experiment with and see how you're getting on. Also interesting with dairy products is, as well, as much as they're high in calcium, which is good, they're actually quite low in key nutrients such as magnesium, which, as I said, is just so important, especially at this time of the month. So it might just be worth considering adding a little multi-nutrient to your diet. I've got our balanced mineral drink here, which is a nice option. So that just highlights how nice it is to have all those nutrients in a nice balance, including your calcium, but also alongside your magnesium and vitamin D. So vitamin D is the other one, which is particularly anti-inflammatory, and there is actual specific research around vitamin D and menstrual cramps as well. So something like the balance can just ensure you're getting that all-round nutrient support, which you might struggle to get with certain dietary components such as your dairy, for example. Finally, it's a bit more obvious, but your alcohol as well. It's just going to be more pro-inflammatory. It's also going to be dehydrating. So again, it could cause problems in and around the gut, and it won't do any favours for your circulation. So I think that's my list complete. I hope you enjoyed it, and please add any comments or questions, and the description there I will tag any research I mentioned and also the balanced mineral drink.